Hello, my name is Chelsea Clark, and today I will be discussing my Info 285 research proposal, Collecting Twitter Data through Future Research. The proposed study looks at the social media platform Twitter and the ways in which archival institutions are curating this data. Social media apps like Twitter are a primary source of human communication and interaction, and data generated through social media have a number of unique attributes that make it a powerful resource for social science research. This is an exploratory study that asks the following research question. How are archival institutions collecting and or curating Twitter social media content, and how do they plan to make this data available for research? Sub-questions ask, how are these institutions collecting specific data from the vast quantities of data available, and how do ethical concerns compete with making data available for research? These are some examples of current projects that are collecting and curating Twitter data. The Library of Congress has taken ownership of the Twitter archive, but has yet to make tweets available to researchers due to the overwhelming amount of data. As of 2017, the Library of Congress has decided to become selective about what tweets will be archived, rather than archive Twitter in its entirety. PolitiWhoops is an online database that archives deleted tweets posted by politicians. George Washington University's Social Media Manager is open source software that harvests social media data, allowing social media researchers, students, and cultural heritage institutions to collect datasets from social media services. Based on the literature, these are the tools being used by archivists to curate Twitter data. APIs are how computers talk with each other. Twitter API endpoints include accounts and users, and tweets and replies. This information is encoded in machine-readable JSON format. It's important to note that archivists working with Twitter APIs are bound to Twitter's privacy and restriction terms. Archivists must submit an application for APIs, and Twitter's algorithms remain private. Using crawlers is an alternative approach, as they can capture the look and feel of a social media page at a particular moment in time. The Digital Methods Initiative Twitter Capture and Analysis Toolset, presented in Bohr and Reiter's 2014 study, is an open-access Twitter microblogging tool for data capture and data analysis. This toolset closely follows Twitter's information structures by leaving the primary material untouched, while allowing for change in the sample design and easy ways to create subsamples from the captured datasets. Data analysis includes tweet statistics, activity metrics, network analysis, content analysis, as well as the capabilities of geographical analysis and ethnographic research. The primary challenge to the successful curation of Twitter data is the overwhelming amount of data that is being produced on the platform. In Fondren and McCune's 2018 study of the Library of Congress's Twitter Archive project, they discussed the library's struggle to make the archive accessible for searching. About the project, Fondren and McCune tell us the collection size yielded it too large to conduct a search of the data, with a single search taking up to 24 hours. The library said the sheer volume of data, as well as the complexity and resource requirements of these efforts, were too large to handle. For this reason, the library sought to pursue partnerships with private contractors to allow limited access capability in their reading rooms. The literature demonstrates strategies for extracting relevant data from the surplus available. Chung and Soon present their method for collecting event-related tweets, which focuses on keyword ranking. They start with a small set of keywords that are continuously collected within a predefined time window from the Twitter stream, from which they identify the event-related tweets collected and then extract representative keywords from the set. Finally, the updated keywords are used to fetch tweets in the next time window. Arnold and Sampson demonstrate how using 3 Twitter APIs allows for tweet extraction. Search APIs allows aggregation of tweets that include a specific search term sent to Twitter's servers within the week prior to the query. Stream APIs allows the user to collect tweets with a designated search term the moment the tweets are sent to Twitter's server. User timeline APIs can be used to determine which users are discussing one's topic of interest, gather the usernames from those tweets, and then collect the last 3,200 tweets from the user's Twitter profile page. It's important to note that the User Timeline API also collects user information such as name, location, and biography. Another challenge to successful curation is remaining ethical. This is especially challenging for those archiving Twitter data with the intent of curating for future research. Velt tells us that balancing privacy and access becomes more complicated for digital records like social media because they may face ownership uncertainty and are sometimes already accessible over the public internet. Privacy is the main ethical concern associated with curating Twitter data. As the aim is to make this data searchable for research purposes, there are concerns about protecting user privacy. Velt explains that research on social media archiving indicates that data analysis might reveal personal information about individuals who may not know how their information is being used. Archivists will need to carefully balance the aim of making the data open for research with the need to protect user identity. Velt's study utilized surveys and interviews to examine how archivists are currently archiving activist social media accounts. These archivists are particularly concerned with privacy, as governments can use these archives to locate activist identities. Respondents in Velt's study provide 4 practices they employ to protect user identity. One is the utilization of hashtags, keywords, and geolocations rather than personal accounts to extract data. One respondent explained that a major part of the curation process for their institution was ensuring user anonymity. Another practice was archiving social media web pages over data sets so that personal information is not inadvertently captured as well. The final example was hydration, or providing tweet IDs that a researcher could then use to locate tweet data within the APIs. The study proposes a mixed method data collection approach combining quantitative and qualitative methods employing both survey and interview processes. This will be an exploratory sequential design where qualitative data from interviews will be used to further explain the quantitative results found in the initial surveys. The study will be employing a purposive sampling method, as the study population will be based on institutions and groups who are currently working to curate Twitter data and would work best as participants. The aim of the study is to gain an understanding of curation practices. Therefore, I shall first employ a survey method to form a basic understanding of how archival institutions are curating social media data. Once I've analyzed this data, I will then use interviews to gain a deeper understanding of why institutions are using these practices, what is working, and what might need improvement. I will employ semi-structured interviews, creating an interview guide that will be informed by the data generated through the initial survey study. I plan to conduct interviews online using Google Meet or Skype. This will alleviate travel costs and time constraints while still allowing for face-to-face interviews. The variables being analyzed are the types of software and tools being used, practices for data extraction, the collection policies in practice, the metadata creation procedures being implemented, and the policies surrounding privacy of users. I plan to employ coding practices to the data gathered from the surveys and interviews. As the surveys are quantitative, I will be counting responses to provide numeric data. For interview results, I will create defined code words that I will use to identify the presence of themes. There are 2 areas of ethical concern in this study. The first is about consent. Archivists aim to make Twitter data open for research, but it is not feasible to gain consent from every user that will be a part of their archive. Arnold and Sampson state that there are no legal inhibitions for collection of Twitter data as users agree to such use through Twitter's terms of service. It can therefore be argued that the burden of anonymity and safety lies with the user. But overall, the literature suggests that this statement is not accurate for archivists attempting to preserve social media data. Anonymity is an area of concern. As subjects will be representatives from institutions, they will most likely be recognizable to their employers. While no questions about the interviewee's performances are planned, the unstructured nature of the interview leaves the researcher less control in this area. There are some limitations to be found in this study. The expected sample size will be small, as social media curation is a more recent practice. Small sample size decreases the study's ability to be generalized, but the aim of the study is to gather data that can be used to present a beginning for future, more in-depth research. While I plan to reach out to as many institutions and groups I can find who are working with Twitter data, it is not likely that all of them will agree to participate in the surveys. Interview results will then be dependent on who both completes the survey and is then willing to complete the interview process. In the case of this proposed study, there should be less of a bias effect, as the researcher is not an expert in the area, thus there is less chance of the researcher influencing the answers of the interviewees. A final limitation are the ethical concerns we discussed in the last slide. As Sidlowski tells us, if libraries and archives fail to collect web content, it is likely to become unavailable. It is imperative that institutions begin establishing best practice in how to curate social media data, as this is the future of both research and digital curation. This study will explore what institutions are currently doing, determining what works and what can be improved for the next attempts at curating social media data. Hopefully, there will be collaboration between these institutions, and they use this study as a starting point for their discussions. I hope you enjoyed my research proposal and found it informative on my proposed study, as well as the current practices of Twitter data curation found in the literature. Thank you.